picture this. You're completely off the grid. Maybe you're anchored in this quiet cove on a sailboat, or, you're parked in an RV just miles away from the nearest town.
Right, living the dream.
Exactly. And you glance down at your battery monitor on the wall, and it's glowing with this reassuring, bright 100%.
The best feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel completely safe. You have power to spare. So you decide to, I don't know, turn on the coffee maker or maybe fire up the microwave and then click.
Oh, no.
Total darkness. The power just dies. Your monitor is still sitting there, smugly reading this high percentage, but you are literally sitting in the dark with zero actual power. What just happened?
It's the ultimate betrayal by your own equipment. That is the exact moment when the very instrument that's designed to give you peace of mind just starts lying to you.
A total loss of trust.
Yeah, completely. The system is telling you that you have plenty of energy, but the physical reality of your battery bank is that it's completely exhausted.
And fixing that trust, making sure your instruments actually reflect reality, is the entire mission of this deep dive.
It's so crucial.
It really is. We are unpacking a highly detailed technical guide on calibrating Victron battery monitors. Specifically, we're looking at models like the BMV-712 and the Victron SmartShunt.
Right.
Because when that screen says 100%, you need it to be the absolute verifiable truth.
That's exactly. And fixing this isn't what most people expect. I mean, when our electronic devices act up, our modern instinct is, well, the classic IT solution, right?
Just turn it off and on again.
Just turn it off, wait 10 seconds, turn it back on. But resetting a battery monitor is absolutely not a simple reboot. It is a really critical, highly precise calibration.
Okay, so what's the actual goal of that calibration then?
The entire goal is to ensure that the device's state of charge reading, what we call the SOC, perfectly matches the actual physical chemical energy that is sitting inside those battery cells.
Let's start with how people traditionally look at batteries. Because if I want to know how much power my car battery has, I can just grab a cheap voltmeter, check the voltage, and get a pretty good idea.
Right, yeah.
So why can't I just do that with a massive off-grid power setup? I mean, why does a smart monitor even get confused in the first place?
Well, historically, with older lead-acid batteries, people did rely heavily on voltage. As a traditional lead-acid battery drains, its voltage drops in this very predictable downward slope.
Oh, so it's basically a gauge.
Exactly. It serves as a decent proxy for the state of charge. You look at the voltage, you check a chart, and you know roughly where you stand. But a Victron unit operates on a completely different level because modern batteries require it to.
Right.
It is essentially what's known in the industry as a Coulomb counter.
Wait, a Coulomb counter?
Yeah.
If I look at my system and it says like 13.2 volts, why can't I just use a standard chart to guess my capacity, like I did with my old RV batteries? Why do we suddenly need to count coulombs?
That brings up a massive shift in modern battery chemistry. Unlike lead-acid, lithium batteries, like LFP or those battle-born setups, they have what is known as a very flat voltage curve.
Flat meaning it just doesn't change much.
Exactly. They hold a nearly identical steady voltage for almost their entire discharge cycle. So a lithium battery might read 13.2 volts when it's sitting at 80% capacity, and it might also read 13.2 volts when it is all the way down at 20% capacity.
Wow. So if your monitor is only looking at voltage?
It will have absolutely no idea if you have a massive reservoir of energy left or if you are moments away from a total blackout.
Okay, let's unpack this. Trying to measure a modern lithium battery's charge by just looking at the voltage it's like trying to guess exactly how much water is in a massive opaque bucket just by staring at the surface of the water.
Yes, that's it, exactly.
Like, you might see the water level near the top, but you don't know how deep the bucket is. A Coulomb counter, on the other hand, stands at the edge of the bucket and literally counts every single drop of water that goes in and every single drop that comes out.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. The monitor cannot just glance at the surface. It constantly measures both the voltage and the current to track the exact mathematical amp hours moving during every single charge cycle and discharge cycle.
It has to count the drops.
It must count the drops to know what is inside the bucket.
Okay, so the monitor is in there counting drops day in and day out. But eventually, we know it loses count, right? Because people do end up sitting in the dark.
Unfortunately, yes.
How does a highly accurate digital counter just drift off track? And I guess, when does a user actually need to step in and intervene?
So the drift happens because of tiny compounding mathematical errors over time. or parasitic draws that the system just struggles to measure perfectly.
Things like standby lights or little sensors.
Exactly. The behavioral signs are usually quite glaring, though, if you know what to look for. You are looking for incorrect SOC readings that just defy basic logic.
Give me an example.
For instance, if you know your battery has been heavily used and should be sitting at roughly maybe 40%, but the moment you turn on your generator, the percentage instantly and magically jumps to 100%.
Oh, so the system assumes that sudden influx of power means it's instantly full.
Yes, exactly. Or, on the flip side, your monitor reads that you are a comfortable 90% full, but your system's low-voltage cutoff hardware suddenly triggers.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, it shuts off your inverter to protect the batteries. The system's brain thinks it's full, but the physical hardware is screaming that it is dangerously empty.
Right.
That is what the manual calls a sync-do moment.
A sync do. Okay. But beyond just weird behavior, the sources mention that there are structural events where a reset is absolutely mandatory.
Right, structural changes.
I assume if I rip out my old lead-acid batteries and drop in a brand new Victron lithium system, I obviously need to start from scratch. But the guide says it's also required after system maintenance.
Yes, it is.
Why would adding something like a new solar charge controller or, I don't know, changing out heavy gauge wiring force me to recalibrate my battery monitor?
Well, any alteration to the physical pathways of your electrical system fundamentally changes how current flows.
Oh, I see.
A new piece of hardware, or even just swapping to a thicker gauge of copper wire, might introduce a different electrical resistance, or it might create new parasitic power draws.
Right, so the old math doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. The monitor's previous mathematical baseline, how it calculated those drops of water, is now completely obsolete. Any change that alters the physical flow of current requires you to do a full saturating charge and a complete recalibration.
Oh, it's just guessing.
Otherwise, the monitor just continues to operate on the outdated assumptions of the old setup.
Okay, so if I am feeling paranoid on a random Tuesday afternoon, and I just want my screen to say 100% so I can, feel good about running the air conditioning, can I just open the Victron app and force a manual sync?
I mean, you physically can go into the Victron Connect app via Bluetooth or push the buttons on the physical head unit to hit sync, but you absolutely should not do it just for peace of mind.
Really?
Why not? The monitor is actually designed to synchronize itself automatically in the background. It will only do so when it is 100% certain, mathematically speaking, that the battery is entirely full.
Wait, how does a tiny digital shunt actually know for sure?
No.
It's not just taking a wild guess.
No, not at all.
Because the sources refer to this as the trifecta of calibration. Like 3 very specific parameters that all have to be met at the exact same time before the system allows itself to sync.
Right. It demands proof of saturation. First, the system voltage must rise to whatever specific number you've configured as the charged voltage. That is the threshold that tells the monitor the battery is getting very close to the top.
But wait, we just established that voltage alone is basically a liar, especially with lithium. It can't just rely on hitting a high voltage number, right?
Exactly, which is why the second condition acts as the verification. It looks at the current. The charge current must drop below a specific percentage known as the tail current.
Tail current, got it.
Think about the physics of a battery. As those chemical cells get completely saturated with energy, the internal resistance pushes back. The battery physically cannot accept as much current from the charger anymore.
So it slows down.
Yeah, the massive flow of amps slows down to this tiny crawling trickle.
Okay, so we have high voltage and a tiny trickle of current. But there's a third condition. Time. Let me throw a hypothetical at you.
Sure, go for it.
What if a heavy cloud suddenly clears and my massive solar panel array just blasts the battery with a huge spike of voltage for just 2 seconds while nothing is really drawing power? Would the monitor mistakenly yell, high voltage, low draw, we're at 100%, and just falsely sync?
That exact scenario is why the third condition exists, the charge detection time.
Ah, okay.
Both of those first 2 conditions, the high voltage and the trickling tail current, must hold true continuously for a sustained period. usually several minutes.
So it waits it out.
Exactly.
Hmm.
That time delay prevents the system from being fooled by temporary environmental spikes, like your solar panel example, or an alternator surging.
It's a brilliantly cautious piece of logic.
It is, which is why you should only ever force a manual sync when you, the human operator, have absolute visual confirmation that the battery is fully saturated.
Right.
You need to know that your chargers have either completely stopped putting out power or they've been sitting in their final low-voltage float stage for a significantly long time.
Okay, let's say we do things perfectly. We wait for the float stage, we verify it's full, we hit sync. The monitor probably updates to 100%. We're good to go, problem solved, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, come on.
I know. But sync things simply tells the monitor the bucket is full right at this exact second.
Okay.
But if the foundational settings, what we can call the digital DNA of the monitor, are programmed incorrectly for your specific battery bank, the monitor will immediately start calculating the drops wrong the very second you start using power again.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Performing a sync without getting these core parameters right is like having a perfectly zeroed rifle scope mounted on a crooked rail.
That's a great way to put it.
The starting point is fine, but the moment you try to use it, your aim will inevitably drift over time. You'll miss the target completely.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's dig into this digital DNA. The most foundational piece has to be the battery capacity, measured in amp hours.
The capacity is the bedrock of the entire calculation. The monitor calculates your current percentage by taking the amp hours you have consumed and dividing it by the total amp hour capacity you programmed into it.
So what happens if a user upgrades their system from an old 200 amp hour battery bank to a massive new 400 amp hour bank, but they completely forget to go into the app and update that number?
Well, the monitor will still firmly believe it is managing a 200 amp hour system.
Oh boy.
Yeah. As you use power, it will count 200 amp hours going out, and it will confidently declare the battery completely dead at 0%.
Meanwhile,
In physical reality, your massive new 400 amp hour battery is still sitting at a very healthy 50% capacity.
that's wild.
Every single calculation it makes, every percentage it displays, will be wildly incorrect until you tell it the actual size of the bucket.
Okay, so we've told the system the bucket is 400 amp hours.
Yeah.
But how does it mathematically know when the water has reached the very brim? Setting the capacity isn't enough. We have to define the finish line for that automatic sync we talked about earlier.
Right. And we define that finish line using the charged voltage setting.
Okay,
You must set this parameter slightly below your charger's absorption or float voltage.
slightly below.
Yes. The technical guide specifies setting it about 0.1 to 0.2 volts below what the charger actually puts out.
Why below?
This gives the monitor a realistic, achievable target. It essentially tells the device to start paying very close attention to the current once the voltage crosses that specific line.
Which brings us to the tail current. I love how the sources describe this. It's the whisper of current that a nearly full battery accepts.
Yeah, calling it a whisper is highly evocative for a technical manual, but physically it's incredibly accurate. For lithium iron phosphate LFP chemistry, this tail current needs to be set very, very low, typically around 1 to 2% of your total battery capacity.
That is low.
Once the current dropping into the battery dips below that tiny threshold, the monitor finally accepts that the cells are saturated and simply cannot take any more energy.
Okay, we have the capacity, the voltage target, the tail current whisper. But let's talk about the charge efficiency factor. This seems to trip up a massive number of people when they finally upgrade from old acid batteries to modern lithium.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
This setting dives into a fascinating bit of physics regarding internal resistance.
Okay, physics time.
When you push electrical energy into any battery, not all of that energy actually gets stored in the chemical cells. A percentage of it is always lost as heat due to the physical resistance inside the battery itself.
Oh, sure.
Think of it like a tax on your energy. If you push 100 amps of power in, you might only get to pull 85 amps back out later.
Lead acid batteries are notorious for this energy tax, right? Because they get incredibly warm when you charge them.
They really do. A typical lead-acid battery might only have an efficiency factor of 85 to 95%. But lithium is a completely different beast, chemically.
Are efficient.
Remarkably efficient. LFP batteries, almost every single amp you push in, you can pull back out. There's very little heat loss. So for a lithium setup, you need to go into the settings and bump that charge efficiency factor all the way up to 99%.
Let's make this practical. Say I spend thousands on a new lithium bank, but I leave my monitor's efficiency factor set to 85% because, that's what it was set to for my old batteries. What actually happens to my system?
The monitor is going to artificially penalize your charge cycle every single time the sun comes up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Your solar panels will push 100 amps into the battery, but because of your incorrect setting, the monitor will mathematically only register 85 amps hitting the bucket.
Wait, it just ignores the rest?
It literally throws the other 15 amps away in its calculation. Over a week, across dozens of charge cycles, that mathematical error compounds heavily.
That's the drift.
That's the drift. Your monitor will slowly drift lower and lower, eventually telling you that you are out of power when you actually have plenty. Using the wrong efficiency factor is the primary cause of SOC drift over time.
Okay, so let's say we've dialed in our digital DNA perfectly. We've got our 99% lithium efficiency, our 1% tail current whisper, our correct 400 amp-hour capacity. We try to use the system, and it still fails.
Oh, no.
Let's troubleshoot, because the sources highlight some incredibly frustrating user errors. What if someone installs this beautiful system, turns on the screen, and it just reads 0% and refuses to budge no matter how much they charge it?
Well, if the monitor is entirely stuck at 0%, or it isn't registering any amp draw when you turn on a heavy appliance, you almost certainly have a physical wiring issue.
Hardware, not software.
Exactly. The Victron monitor relies entirely on a physical block of metal called a shunt to measure the current. The rule for wiring a shunt is absolute and unforgiving.
What's the rule?
All electrical loads and all charge sources must be connected to the system side of that shunt.
Nothing gets to skip the line.
Nothing. The only thing connected to the battery-only side of the shunt should be the main negative cable coming directly off the battery terminal.
So if a solar controller or an inverter bypasses the shunt and wires directly to the battery,
the monitor simply cannot see those drops of water entering or leaving the bucket. It goes completely blind to that energy.
wow. Okay, what if it's not stuck at 0, but it just refuses to automatically sync to 100% no matter how many days you leave it plugged into shore power?
That indicates your trifecta parameters. The charge voltage and the tail current aren't actually being met in physical reality. The system's brain is waiting to sync, but the real-world math just isn't adding up. At that point, you need to stop looking at the app, grab a digital multimeter, go down to the actual battery terminals, and verify that the real-world voltage matches what the device is reporting.
You have to ensure the charger is actually outputting what you think it is.
Exactly. Get your head out of the digital interface and look at the actual physical hardware.
Speaking of digital interfaces, there is this massive misconception here that I find fascinating because it really speaks to how confusing modern apps can be.
Right.
People are desperately trying to calibrate their system. They dig through the Victron Connect app settings, and they find a button that says, reset the pin. I imagine users eagerly pushing this thinking, a reset button. That will finally fix my battery percentage.
Oh, we see this happen constantly. We need to be perfectly clear on this point. The option to reset the PIN is strictly a Bluetooth security feature.
It's just a password.
It is just a password reset. It is not a calibration tool, and it does absolutely nothing to the energy readings or the digital DNA.
It's literally just there in case you get locked out of your own app.
Yeah.
To even use it, the sources say you need the device's PUK code.
Yes, the PUK code is physically printed on the product's sticker. It functions essentially as the device's birth certificate. Entering it gets you back into the menu so you can change your Bluetooth password, but it doesn't calibrate a single drop of water.
That's a crucial distinction for anyone troubleshooting. Just like understanding the difference between a partial sync and a factory reset.
Right. A partial sync, which is what happens when you manually hit sync to 100%, is the standard maintenance procedure we've been discussing.
That just updates the percentage.
It simply updates the currently displayed percentage to 100 based on all your carefully tuned settings. A factory reset, however, is the nuclear option.
Okay, so that wipes everything.
It wipes all of that carefully configured digital DNA, your capacity, your tail current, your efficiency factor completely back to zero. You should only ever use a factory reset if the device's memory is deeply corrupted, or if you are starting completely fresh with a brand new, fundamentally different battery type.
So we've waded through the deep weeds of Coulomb counters, flat voltage curves, the strict rules of the sync trifecta, and the compounding math of the digital DNA.
We covered a lot.
We did. But if we zoom all the way out from the settings menu, Why does this precise level of calibration actually matter for a user's broader off-grid experience? I
Yeah.
mean, if a monitor is drifting and happens to be off by 5 or 10%, is that really a crisis?
You should care deeply because this data does not just stay isolated inside the monitor on your wall.
It doesn't.
No. A perfectly calibrated Victron monitor integrates with other smart products via a central networking hub, usually a GX device. It broadcasts the single state of charge percentage to your entire electrical ecosystem.
Oh, I see. The monitor isn't just a gauge. It's the brain feeding critical survival information to the rest of the body.
Precisely. Based solely on that one percentage number, your solar charge controllers will make decisions on whether to pump full power into the bank or safely taper off.
So if it's wrong,
If your monitor drifts incorrectly and thinks the batteries are dying, your system might automatically trigger a heavy-duty diesel generator to start up at 2 in the morning, waking up your entire campsite for absolutely no reason.
oh my gosh.
Regular maintenance, ensuring it syncs properly every few weeks when it hits that float state, keeps this entire automated ecosystem functioning predictably.
So the real-world consequence of bad math is an RV generator screaming in the middle of the night
Yeah.
or, your refrigerator shutting off and spoiling your food while you actually have plenty of power left.
Exactly. Consider the deeper implication of all this. People spend tens of thousands of dollars building incredibly robust off-grid survival ecosystems. Massive solar arrays, heavy-duty generators, sprawling banks of lithium cells.
It's serious infrastructure.
We view this machinery as our independence, but that entire heavy-duty physical system is completely blind.
Wow.
It takes all of its critical marching orders based on a tiny, literal whisper of electrical current passing through one single, small piece of calibrated metal, the shart.
A completely blind powerhouse, just waiting for one tiny sensor to tell it what reality is.
Our